So recently I've been practicing. I'm going to be making a drop table writing desk at the beginning of next year. And there's a couple different techniques that I haven't done in a while, and I wanted to practice before I actually start working on the actual project. I know a lot of people make mock-ups. Actually, professionals will make mock-ups of the desk. I've never done that, mainly because I don't have the time and I don't have the extra wood to spare. But in any case, so I'm practicing different techniques. Like this is a, if you can look in here, we have a sliding dovetail that comes out, right? And just a little groove in the end, all done with hand planes, just to put the side of a desk in and stuff like that. And I've also been practicing doing moldings. And a lot of this is because I made that video on the Stanley 55 and how to do different moldings. And I decided just to practice again because the wood that I used in that video was all softwood. It was pine. It was stuff like this. It was pretty easy to cut. But I hadn't worked on cherry in a while, which is going to be the wood I'll be using for the desk, and also my choice of wood for projects. It's fairly hard, but also fairly soft, so it's very easy to work, and I love it. So I've been trying to make moldings, and I went back to this guy here, and boy, is that a pain in the ass. I tell you, you know, I use this to make moldings on an L-shaped executive desk that I made for my wife several years ago. I put a video to that in the corner if you want to take that out, take a look at that. And everything was great. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do the same thing. So I went in and just started to use the 55 to practice again. And I was having so much trouble that I couldn't figure it out. I was like, what is the problem with this? And especially considering I just did a video on the Stanley 55, I was flabbergasted. I didn't have any idea what was going on. So I got out the instruction book again, my manual, and in the back here, it has a section on these odd-shaped planes, the odd-shaped moldings, and how to set the runners. And this is the guy down here that I'll be using, or that I showed you before. This one. We'll turn that around so it matches. And if you look, right here, it has the runner on the inside of the bead. And I had forgotten that. When I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. When I made that video on the 55 a couple weeks ago, I was using softwood and I was really pushing the plane up against the wood, making sure that fence was really right up against the wood when I was doing it, so I didn't have any problem. But when you make moldings for real on actual good wood, and especially using the larger iron, because this is about twice the size as the smaller iron that I used for the video, the plane will keep sliding off. I'll show you what I mean. So this is a molding that I just did on softwood, and this is the plane. Oops, I'm sorry. This is the same shape as the iron that I used to do it, okay? The actual iron is still on the plane, so I'm not going to take that out. But this shows you the shape. So I have a bead down here, and then I have another larger bead up here, okay? Now, when I did that video a couple weeks ago, what I told you to do was to set this runner here, the innermost runner, or I'm sorry, the outermost runner. I told you to put it right inside the outside of this bead, okay? And that actually was wrong. That was a mistake on my part. You need to put it right here on the inside of the bead. And the reason that is because if the runner is out here, it will have nothing, or very little, I should say, to hold on to as you start cutting. The plane, as you can see, it's very precarious, okay, because it's only balancing on basically this one runner until you start cutting the top of the molding, and this runner comes into play. So you got one very thin skid to hold the whole thing up on. So if this is out here, then you have this little piece of wood, only this little piece of wood right here for it to run on. Come on. Right here, and it will keep sliding off. It'll keep sliding off as you press it, and you'll ruin your molding. So you need to have this runner so that as you cut this bead, it falls right inside that bead and has something to run on and support the plane as you continue to cut. So that was the mistake. Now the other thing that I realized that should have been a no-brainer considering the years that I've used hand planes is this. Yeah, wax. A candle, basically. You got to wax the runners of this plane as well. Just take the candle and run it right along the runners. You would not believe how much this helps to make moldings, especially complex moldings. So don't forget that. That's a huge win. The other thing to remember is when you put the fence on, okay, there's a little bit of play, just a little. There's a little bit of play side to side. So when you put this on, you got to make sure that this fence is parallel with that ski, because if it's not, it's going to bind. The wood's going to get caught in between the skid, the runner, whatever you want to call it, and the fence, and you're not going to be able to move the plane. So you got to make sure that that's parallel. I even took a plane and I smoothed out this fence because I noticed that it was a little bit warped from the years, okay, just to make that so it's a flat surface, and I can make sure that this is completely parallel with that runner. And now we got some cherry, put it on here. Make sure you only take a small shaving off, and make sure the wood is going in the right direction. You want to go with the grain, you don't want to go against, because you'll never be able to cut. But as you can see, oh, it cuts much better and smoother. And also make sure you have your depth gauge set so that you don't make the molding too deep, or rather deeper than you need it to be, because this can be kind of hard going and you don't want to do more work than's necessary. Let's take some shavings, burnish that up a little bit. Got a little bit of a mark here that I can't seem to get out. Go over that with sandpaper, but there we go. Profile is nice on both ends, so that came out pretty good. So as you can see, even if you have everything set up right, it will take some time to make your moldings, and it is very labor intensive. But I tell you, out of everything, this is really the hardest one. That guy is really the iron that gives you the most trouble. I tried this one, which is very similar in shape and profile. This is what it looks like. No, that's not what it is. There you go. This is what it looks like. The profile looks very nice. That's very easy to set up, and you set that up the same way that I showed you in the original video, so there are no problems with that iron. I actually tried, just on a whim, to use the cam support, which goes on the end of your rod here. Okay, you can set that to whatever height you need. I tried that when I started to make the molding, and it actually worked very well with this guy, with that guy. It worked great. If you put this on and you set it at the right height, or you set it at the height it is before you start cutting, as you cut the molding, the plane is going to tilt like this, okay, because you have that cam support on here. But with this molding, because of the shape, because the outside is basically a curve, it actually didn't affect the molding at all, and it was actually really easy to push. So that might be something you want to experiment with some of the other style of cutters. I suspect, though, it probably won't work. This is probably the only one, because there aren't really any other cutters that have this convex curve on the outside. So, but that was just one idea that I toyed around with, trying to make things easier. And that's it. I wanted to make this video to apologize and say, hey, listen, I got it wrong. I will apologize for the mistakes that I made, and I will admit my mistakes. I'm not that egotistical. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it gave you some more knowledge that you didn't have before, and I'll see you next time.